Hello. Israel has accused Keir Starmer of rewarding Hamas, which indeed he is doing. But let's face it, Starmer has a history of rewarding, I'm going to have to beat this out, rape and sexual violence. Hasn't he? Just to remind you, Keir Starmer was Director of Public Prosecutions and Head of the Crown Prosecution Service from 2008 to 2013. So it was on his watch in 2008 that there was talk of something wrong happening in mostly northern towns, if you count Telford as sort of northern. The head of the CPS would have been well informed about the awful stories, if only because one of the MPs in one of the northern towns, Anne Cryer, was making a fuss about it even then. And as head of the CPS, Starmer should at least have been asking questions. I'm Granniopteryx. Please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe. Also, if you want to help me financially, that would be, well, much appreciated. You'll all be very glad to know that I won't be spending too much on mint imperials this month because the apples have started ripening on my apple tree and there are only so many apple pies and apple fools I can make of them. So, as I said, as head of the CPS, Starmer should at least have been asking questions in 2008. But he wasn't asking questions. In 2009, the CPS had shelved the case against suspects in Rochdale because the 15-year-old main victim and witness was considered unreliable, even though they had her clothes with DNA on them. And this is interesting. It's an article in The Guardian, and it says why the Rochdale grooming trial wasn't about race. And of course it was about race, but that's very typically Guardian. And that's the sort of thing that's in Starmer's mind as well. Anyway, in 2009, this 15-year-old victim was dismissed as being unreliable, as I said, even with DNA evidence. And 3 years later, Nazir Afzal, that was 2011, and he was the recently appointed chief prosecutor of the CPS. He looked at the documents, he looked at the evidence, the same evidence that had been there for 3 years, and he decided to restart the case because he could see it was absolutely a slam dunk. Maggie Oliver, a detective forced out by her colleagues, basically, because of her unwillingness to stay quiet, said that the CPS bears a great deal of responsibility for the failures, and the victims were often dismissed, it says here. So what's Starmer's record on prosecuting, well, they call them grooming gangs? Well, it's not very good. And this is the BBC saying the CPS, was CPS or Starmer complicit? He was head of the CPS in 2008. And it points here to the fact that the main victim was considered unreliable and the case was only reopened in 2011 by somebody other than Keir Starmer. There's a lot more to this, which most of you already know, but I thought I'd just remind you of Starmer's record with regard to evil. He appears to feel quite happy about turning a blind eye to it so long as it keeps him on the same side as people he sees as being in his tribe. I'm pretty sure that his inaction over the mounting stories coming from the north had to do with his willing acceptance of the assurances of his Labour mates in those councils and the police authorities. And we've all been subjected to the repellently embarrassing retort he made to Donald Trump, who criticised Sadiq Khan's governance of London recently. "He's a friend of mine," Starmer said. Evidently, just as oblivious to the third world disaster that's been made of London by Sadiq Khan as he was to the third world disaster that was being made of Telford and Rochdale by not only the rape gangs but the councils and the police. And now he's rewarding Hamas for their murderousness, most likely because that friend of his, the French President Macron, thinks it's a good idea. Sometimes I'm reminded by Starmer, that thing in Back to the Future where the kid goes back in time and he sees his father as a pupil at the school being bullied by that bully. I don't remember any of their names. And the father is sort of laughing inanely at the bullying he's getting. Do you remember that? Well, that's what Starmer reminds me of. Anyway, to add colossal stupidity to abject toadyism and a complete incapacity for strategic thinking, Starmer said he would recognise a state of Palestine if Israel hasn't reached an agreement by September, which means that all Hamas has to do is hang on to the hostages and torture them a bit more and keep on fighting over the bodies of the civilians until September to get what they want. Well done, Einstein. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.